Today we're talking about producing, and we're probably doing it in the most indie filmmaker way. We're sitting in the back of a rental car because we have nowhere to shoot. But I am not a producer, and so I brought my friend Josh. So like I said, today I'm here with my friend Josh. Josh has helped me produce my last documentary, Revival with Harold Vaughan, in Ireland, and that was a wild time. But I always love being able to hang out with him, and he's a really good friend of mine. But Josh, who are you, and what do you actually do in the film world?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. So typically I work a lot in narrative feature films. That's what I've been doing for the past few years. I've been working as a location manager and also done some associate producing. What some people don't know is that a location manager works very closely with producers and is in that producing world a lot, mainly because a producer involves a lot of those logistical details. We help create the space for the creatives to come on and actually accomplish the story. So yeah, that's kind of been my experience, and always an adventure.
So Josh and I have worked on quite a few projects together, but I think working on my film, Revival, was your first producing role, right?
Yeah, so we've been on several projects together, and kind of the natural delineation of work between Enoch and me is Enoch's very creative and loves focusing on the story and the cameras and all the technical aspects, and my brain is usually in the logistical world of how do I help get Enoch's vision accomplished. So it's just kind of been a natural progression of he has an idea, and for Ireland that was a great idea where it's like, sure, I'll come along and help make that happen.
Did you know what you were getting yourself into?
Do we ever know what we're getting ourselves into?
I think that project probably pushed us both creatively, technically. It was your first time out of the country, right?
Yeah.
And you were also like dealing with all the like logistic. You had like the gear list thing. What's that called?
Carnet.
Carnet. Yeah. And like
it was a good learning experience.
Yeah,
for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, all of these things that were like things we'd just never experienced before. But I think what might be helpful for our viewers is to explain, what does a producer do in a documentary? Because I think that a documentary often requires a lot of flex and people wearing multiple hats because your crews are just smaller. And so coming from a narrative world where the one person does that one specific thing, how would you say that, like, what does a producer do on a documentary?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think the way I like to describe what a producer does is he's the guy who basically carries the project on his shoulders until it's done. He's the guy who makes it happen and brings that project across the finish line. So at the end of the day, you're going to hire some people and they're going to do their job in whatever department they are. And at the end of the day, they're going to go home. And to a certain extent, the producer never gets to leave, because if he stops pushing that project, it's not going to be finished. So in a documentary, there's a lot of tie over from the narrative world, but at the end of the day, it's my goal, my job to help create Enoch's vision, help bring it to pass. So whether that's just simple logistical details of, how are we going to get this many bags over into a country? How are we going to where are we going to film, and what do I need to do to make sure we have all our permissions in place for Enoch to film? Or maybe it's just, where are we going to find food and lodging and housing and transportation to get to where we need to go, so that the idea, the goal, the story that Enoch has gets accomplished. And I think we have a pretty good, pretty natural working relationship. To a certain extent, we're both working on these details.
Right.
Especially in Ireland, there was a lot of crossover, but at the end of the day, Enoch's main concern was the story, what we were trying to tell, and how that was going to look and how that was going to be conveyed. And my main concern was making sure that he had the space to do that, he had the resources to do that, and he was able to do that without worrying about the details that might try and trip him up towards getting that finished product.
I think probably a good example of this was the library in in the documentary. There's a scene where there's kind of like an interview bit that happens in a really cool old library, and I remember thinking through how that was going to happen, and just trying to make creative decisions. That we were talking about something historical, and we were going to look at like some old historical photographs and things like that. And so I really wanted like a historical feel. And I think I had sent you like, oh, I really like this library.
Yeah.
And so you started going in, looking at it, and I don't think we were able, like, there was some, I don't remember what it was, but we weren't able to film there.
Yeah, we had several places scouted that we thought might be potential places to film this scene. So when we went over there, some of those pieces naturally were no longer options, and some of those were options. This was one of the places that we still really wanted to film at. And so I helped make sure we worked through the permissions, make sure we had the insurance they were requesting, and make sure that it was feasible for us to go and shoot there. So it ended up being a really cool place to film, and I think it was well worth any of the efforts that we put towards making that happen.
I think that it would not have been a scene without Josh, because I could not. I think this is where the benefit of hiring a producer actually comes from, because I just didn't, while doing this project, there were several characters that I had to keep track of, and they're all, I mean, it's all real life scenarios. So,
and some of those storylines were changing as we're filming.
Exactly. So I did not have the bandwidth to get back with the people on, I think they had asked for like more insurance or something like that. And I remember just hitting a point where I was like, Josh, I don't know what to tell you, but I really, really want to have this place. And Josh made it happen.
Yeah, and so that was a good example of Enoch felt that it was needed for the story, really wanted to shoot there for many reasons related to the creative choices of the film. And he was like, is it possible to do it, and can you do it? And so that was where I was able to stay over in my logistical world and go, okay, this is how much we have in the budget. This is what we need to do to make it happen. And so we were able to make it happen. And that left Enoch free to only focus on creative choices, and I was able to support that. And so that's what makes a good team.
Yeah. I think another really important bit for people that are, looking for a producer, you've probably been doing things yourself up until this point, and you're kind of looking to bring somebody on to be able to help you realize your creative vision a little bit more, is to find somebody that you work well with too. I think that's one of the things that is really invaluable to our relationship, is we're friends. Like, I'll call Josh up and we'll just talk about random stuff, projects we're working on. We'll vent about, whatever's going on. And it's great because, we can have both a good working relationship and also realize that, like, no matter what happens, we're on each other's teams. And
Yes.
And I appreciate, this is something that I really appreciate about Josh too, is I am not an organized person, and the way that I will write out storylines and things like that I'm imagining, in a documentary, things change constantly. And so what you imagine is the ending of your documentary might not be. And I think a good example of this is, as we were working on that Ireland revival documentary, I had imagined it ending a completely different way than it did. And I was really kind of getting stressed out because those pieces just were not falling together, and I didn't know how it was going to end. And Josh just randomly suggested, hey, why don't we end this certain way? I think it'd be really cool. And it was a great idea. That's actually how we ended up ending the documentary. And I think that if we didn't have that friendship, understanding of, like, we're all on the same team here, I don't think that we would have ended that film in the way that we did.
Yeah, well, when you have a good working relationship, when you're good friends, then neither one feels threatened by the other. And we have a pretty good idea of Enoch's strengths and my strengths, and also like my weaknesses, and where Enoch is better at making certain decisions than I might be in a certain case, or in a certain lens choice or creative decision or anything like that. But also there's the freedom for me to kind of be off, not even thinking about the creative choices, and see that there might be an issue of trying to resolve this, and then that kind of frees me up to go, oh, hey, have you thought of doing this? Because I can kind of bring that outside perspective in. And at the end of the day, neither of us are concerned about who gets the credit or anything like that. We just both enjoy working together. We're both good enough friends, and we both trust each other enough where we can give those sort of input and not feel threatened or anything like that, but have good communication. And that goes a long way in like what Enoch was saying about who you work with, because you can have a great producer, but if you're not on the same page, then you're not getting as much out of that scenario as you could.
Right. I think that's a really good point. I think at the end of the day, if you're at the point where you have the budget to be able to hire somebody else, a producer is a really good person to think about hiring. Obviously, you need to hire to your weakness. So for me, I know that I am not a detail person. I'm really bad at creating itineraries and schedules, and especially trying to, as your crew gets bigger, as you have more characters, trying to keep everybody in line and figure out where this person's going to be at this time and that time. And that's just not my strength. And Josh will whip up a spreadsheet and have everything down, and that's great. And so I think what I'm trying to say is that hire to your weakness. Maybe you are an organized person, but you're maybe less of a creative direction kind of person. Maybe you need to hire a director of photography, or you need to, hire a director and you just produce. But make sure that you are hiring to your weaknesses. At the end of the day, you're building a team, and the end result is finishing a documentary that impacts people. And so if you can find people that are good at their craft, that will complement the story, and that are affordable to your budget, you should definitely hire those people.
Yeah, you're trying to bring everybody's strengths and weaknesses together in a way that, like Enoch's saying, complements each other and creates a good team. There's different teams needed for different types of projects.
Right.
And depending on what your end goal is, that's how you can backtrack and go, okay, I have this, who else do I need? I was able to come in and, I'm still growing in all of these fields, producing everything I do. I'm still learning constantly. But I had enough knowledge to get by where I was able to come in and help do some audio work on the documentary. And that also freed Enoch and our team up from having to worry about putting lav mics on people, doing little things like that. And so I was just looking for ways that I could create a more streamlined, efficient approach to making this thing happen. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to get across the finish line, and you want to have a good team that you can communicate well. Communicating in shorthand is great, and if you're friends outside of that, then you probably already have a shorthand like that, and you can anticipate needs before they become needs, before they become issues that you really need to solve fast.
Yeah, exactly what he said. All right, guys, I hope you found this dialogue helpful. It was fun to kind of relive some of the things that we have done in the past. And I really hope that it inspired you to create something yourself. So stop watching this video and start making something. I believe in you, and I'll see you in the next video.